Now, as the process of human beings coming into physical incarnation deepened, we got to the stage where we began to get a deeper sense of spiritual self-awareness, but we lost our direct spiritual perception of higher worlds. Now, this is a process that has many different aspects to it. One aspect is that we're beginning to contract our etheric life body, our subtle body of life forces, so it's contracted further into the physical body. The effect of that is that this allows you to use your physical brain more effectively, so that you develop an ability to have logical linear thinking. This is the type of thinking that most people did not possess in the ancient world, but that more and more people are developing in modern times. And it's the foundation of a modern science that we have today. You can't have a modern science without the faculties of logical, linear, intellectual thinking that we've now developed. So that developed over time, but it required the energy field to contract further into the human body. So that particular contraction is something that actually began to reduce our ability to perceive non-physical realities. Today, you will find in a number of native traditions around the world, their initiations will often be connected to the ingestion of psychoactive substances. So whether it's peyote or ayahuasca or whatever it might be, these particular substances, if you looked at the actual effect they have on the energy field, what they do is they expand the human life body to spread further outside of the physical body, and it activates the energy centers of the body in doing so, and with the life body now being further expanded outside of the physical body, it opens up those organs of spiritual perception again. So while the person is doing the ritual with the ayahuasca or peyote or some other type of psychoactive substance, they are developing a type of clairvoyance during that time, where they get a sense of what it's like to directly perceive spiritual realities. Again, this was a natural faculty without psychoactive substances in earlier times. But this mirrors the condition of the earlier times when the subtle body, particularly the life energy body, was further outside of the physical. Now we'll go into more detail about these types of specifics later in the course. I just want to give you a basic idea of it right now. So as we contracted the subtle bodies further into the physical, this gave us the capacity to be more self-aware. As we're spread out into the world around us, we're not as self-aware and we feel more part of our environment. As we contract further into ourselves, we become more self-aware. And again, that contraction allowed us to use the physical brain in a way that was crystal clear from modern logical thinking. And there are different mythologies that talk about this. For example, the mythology of the Minotaur in ancient Crete, in which the Minotaur is moving through a labyrinth. And this has to do with the consciousness of the human being having to move through the labyrinth of the human brain to learn to master the brain and the modern forms of consciousness and thinking. So with this development in our energy field and our consciousness to be more self-aware and to be able to use the physical body senses more effectively and to use the physical brain for logical thinking, this developed to the point that most human beings were not able to directly perceive non-physical realities. And so one of the things that developed was the development of certain rituals through which there would be the attempt to bring non-physical beings into direct manifestation where they could be seen on the physical plane with the physical eyes. Now you find this, for example, prominently in the ancient Judaic tradition. And so if you read the Book of Kings in the Old Testament, it gives you all these specifics about the building of the Temple of Solomon. They're very specific about this was built on a particular power spot for the whole planet. And then they built it with particular types of materials brought from particular places on the earth, like the cedars of Lebanon, that would have the right resonant qualities to work with and amplify the energies of that spiritual power spot. And then they had to be put into the correct form, so that Hiram had to be brought in as the master architect to design it. And it had specific dimensions with sacred geometry built into the building that are given directly in the Book of Kings. Within this structure of the old Temple of Solomon was then a form of the Holy of Holies. Holy of Holies is a great cubical room that was open on one side. And the side it was open, there was a great veil in front of it. We'll talk more about that later. But for right now, the thing to know is that in that Holy of Holies, that cubical space that was developed, the high priest at a particular time of year would do a certain ritual. And that would allow high spiritual beings to manifest directly into the physical space to physical vision. And the Book of Kings, it says the seraphim could manifest into the space. Well, that's mystery language because the seraphim are understood in the initiate tradition as being the highest of the 9 ranks of the angelic hierarchies. So what they're telling you is that the highest of the angelic hierarchies could actually manifest into the physical space by the way that they had developed the vibrational harmonics of this location. So that's a particular type of spiritual practice to make the spiritual visible here on the physical plane. What we're going to be talking about later in the course is that this has actually shifted over time, so that now we have the capacity for human beings to develop a new form of clairvoyance, and we can actually raise our awareness up toward the spiritual worlds and spiritual beings themselves, not try to pull them down to physical appearance on the physical plane, but to move our own consciousness up to perceive them directly in their own realms by developing new organs of spiritual perception. So this gives us a little bit of background about the states of the human energy field and human consciousness and human initiation processes in ancient times. This now brings us to how this has shifted into modern times.